When Jesus stood before his disciples and declared, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," he was not making a claim about his personal superiority over other human beings. He was revealing the most profound and transformational secret in the entire history of spiritual teaching. This single statement contains the master key to every healing you will ever experience, every demonstration of supply, every moment of genuine inner peace that transcends circumstances. For more than 2,000 years, humanity has completely missed what Jesus was actually communicating in this revolutionary statement. We have worshipped the man while ignoring his central message. We have made Jesus special, different, separate, and unreachable. We have placed him on such a high pedestal that his teachings became impossible for ordinary people to live and demonstrate in daily experience. By making Jesus into someone fundamentally different from ourselves, we have abandoned the very teaching he came to reveal. Jesus was not asking you to worship him as separate from you. He was teaching you to understand exactly what he understood about the nature of identity, consciousness, and divine presence. The I am that he spoke of was not his personal ego identity. It was the infinite presence of God expressing itself as individual conscious being. Here is what changes absolutely everything about how you approach spiritual life and practical manifestation. I am is not merely a phrase you speak or a grammatical construction. It is a state of being, a level of consciousness, a recognition of your true spiritual identity. It is the presence of God announcing itself as your actual nature, not your personality or your body or your history or your circumstances. When Jesus said, "I am the way," he was revealing that recognizing this divine consciousness within yourself is the only real power, the only genuine presence, the only ultimate reality that can actually transform your life from limitation to freedom. Every single time you say, "I am sick," or "I am broke," or "I am alone," or "I am afraid," you are using the most sacred name of God to create and reinforce your present experience. This is not religious metaphor or poetic language or inspirational philosophy. This is the actual mechanics of how manifestation works in consciousness. Joel Goldsmith spent more than 4 decades of his life helping thousands of people understand this principle because he discovered it was the master key that unlocked every other spiritual teaching and made practical demonstration possible. The precise moment you truly grasp that I am is literally God's name announcing itself as your consciousness. Your entire relationship with life undergoes fundamental transformation. You immediately stop begging an external deity somewhere outside yourself for help with your problems. You stop trying to manipulate external conditions to create internal peace. You begin to rest in the profound recognition that the kingdom of God is already established within your own consciousness. Joel Goldsmith came to this revolutionary understanding after many years of desperate spiritual searching, trying every technique and system available. He finally realized that genuine healing does not come from God doing something to you from outside. True healing emerges from recognizing what God is already being as you, expressing through you, living as your very consciousness in this present moment. The Christ consciousness that animated and expressed through the man Jesus of Nazareth is the exact same consciousness that is animating your breathing right now as you hear these words. This is not theology. This is not belief system. This is recognition of what is actually true about the nature of your being beyond all appearances of limitation. This is precisely why Jesus made that other revolutionary statement. "The works that I do, you shall do also, and even greater works than these shall you do." He was not being falsely humble or exaggerating to encourage his followers. He was stating simple metaphysical fact. Once you understand that I am is the presence of God expressing uniquely through every point of aware consciousness, you recognize your own inherent divine nature. This recognition is not arrogance or inflation of ego. It is simply seeing clearly what is true beneath the surface appearances of limitation and separation. When you truly comprehend this at a depth beyond intellectual concept, you naturally stop living from the limited level of human struggle, fear, and constant effort. You stop identifying your true self with temporary conditions like limitation, disease, lack, and conflict. You begin to live from the consciousness that knows itself as already whole, already complete, already eternally supplied by infinite intelligent source. This understanding does not typically develop overnight through one dramatic experience. It requires consistent daily practice, sometimes taking weeks or months of returning again and again to this foundational truth despite appearances that seem to contradict it. A woman named Margaret attended one of Joel Goldsmith's classes in California, carrying the unbearable weight of chronic pain throughout her body that no doctor had been able to successfully resolve or even adequately explain. She had been suffering with this debilitating condition for more than 3 years. She had tried everything that medical science could offer, every treatment, every medication, every therapeutic approach available. She had prayed desperately for God to heal her body, spending hours begging and pleading for relief from her constant suffering. Nothing changed in her condition because she was approaching the situation completely backwards. She was asking God to do something to her from outside, rather than recognizing what God already was being as her true nature beneath the appearance of physical distress. Joel did not pray for her healing in the traditional sense. He did not ask God to remove her pain or fix her body. Instead, he patiently guided her to sit in deep silence and recognize one foundational truth. I am is the only presence actually here in this moment. Not I am Margaret trapped in a painful body, but rather, I am the infinite wholeness of God expressing as this conscious being. She committed to practicing this recognition for 40 minutes every single day. After approximately 3 weeks of this consistent daily practice, something fundamental shifted in Margaret's consciousness and experience. The chronic pain did not gradually decrease bit by bit over time. It simply dissolved completely one morning as she sat in quiet recognition of her true spiritual nature beyond physical identification. She suddenly realized with crystal clarity that the pain had been maintained entirely by her identification with a suffering limited body, rather than with the infinite divine presence that was her actual identity. Joel also worked extensively with a businessman facing complete bankruptcy after years of building his company. This intelligent man had worked incredibly hard, made sound business decisions based on good information, yet circumstances seemed to conspire relentlessly against him despite his best efforts. He came to Joel asking desperately for prayers to change his deteriorating financial situation and save his business from collapse. Joel told him something that initially seemed shocking and even offensive. Your true supply is not located in external conditions, market forces, or economic circumstances. Your supply exists in consciousness itself. He taught this man to completely stop looking to the economy, to potential clients, to market conditions, or to any external source for his good and provision. Instead of focusing outward, Joel instructed him to spend dedicated time each day, simply recognizing this truth. I am the infinite source expressing itself here and now through my consciousness. Not hoping this might become true, not wishing for it desperately, but recognizing what is already factually true beyond appearances. The kingdom of heaven means the realm of absolute wholeness already exists within your own consciousness, not somewhere external. Within approximately 2 months of this transformed approach, unexpected opportunities began emerging that this man had not been able to see before through his consciousness of lack and struggle. Not because God suddenly decided to help him after ignoring his previous desperate prayers, but because his fundamental consciousness shifted from looking outward for supply to recognizing the infinite intelligent source within his own being. New clients appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Previous business deals that had been blocked suddenly unlocked and moved forward. His business not only survived but recovered fully and began thriving within 6 months. The external circumstances reorganized themselves to match his transformed internal consciousness of infinite supply rather than limited resources. A mother whose young child struggled with severe behavioral challenges that disrupted their entire family discovered Joel's teaching during her darkest period. For many years, she had been desperately trying to fix her son, change his difficult behavior through various interventions, and praying intensely for God to heal him and make him normal. The more she focused all her attention and energy on the problem, the more solid and immovable it seemed to become. She was completely exhausting herself fighting against what she perceived as unchangeable reality. Joel taught her something revolutionary. Stop seeing your child through the distorted lens of problem and limitation. Instead, practice consistently recognizing the Christ presence as the actual truth of your child's being, not denying the challenging behavior you witness with your physical senses. but absolutely refusing to accept it as ultimate truth about his spiritual identity. She spent focused time each morning recognizing clearly, I am expressing as my child's true divine nature, whole and complete and perfect. This transformation was not instantaneous or dramatic. For 5 full weeks, she maintained this practice faithfully, while the difficult behavior continued without apparent change. Then gradual shifts began appearing in small ways. Her son became noticeably calmer, more focused, more peaceful in his responses. Teachers at school began commenting on positive changes they were observing. By 3 months of consistent practice, the transformation in this child was absolutely undeniable to everyone who knew him. Not because she fixed him through human effort or manipulation, but because she stopped seeing him through the limiting lens of problem consciousness and began recognizing and holding steady in awareness of his true divine nature. These stories represent what becomes possible when anyone genuinely grasps the truth Jesus revealed through I am the way. If these transformation stories inspire you, like this video to help others find these teachings, subscribe for more, Joel Goldsmith Wisdom, and comment. What healing journey resonated most with you? Once you have grasped the foundational truth of I am as your spiritual identity, Joel Goldsmith taught several specific practices that significantly deepen and stabilize this life-changing realization. The first essential practice he emphasized is what he called the practice of the presence. This means intentionally pausing multiple times throughout your busy day, not to ask God for anything or to try to get something, but simply to acknowledge this truth. The infinite is here now in this present moment. God is present as the very consciousness that is reading these words right now, hearing this message, aware of itself as existing. Set aside just 5 minutes, 3 distinct times during each day. Not to pray for desired outcomes, not to visualize specific things you want to manifest, but simply to rest in pure awareness of divine presence without agenda or goal. Let whatever thoughts arise come and go naturally without fighting them or following them. Return again and again to the simple, direct recognition, I am here now. Infinite presence is expressing itself as this exact moment of awareness. This is not a meditation technique to achieve something. This is conscious recognition of what is already true about reality in this moment. Most people completely fill their spiritual practice time with endless requests, desires, visualizations, and attempts to manipulate consciousness into producing specific results they want. Joel taught exactly the opposite approach. Empty yourself completely of all wanting and needing. Rest fully in the wholeness and fullness that already is present before you ask for anything. The second crucial practice Joel emphasized consistently was what he called impersonalization of problems and conditions. This means recognizing clearly that problems, diseases, limitations, and challenges are not actually personal to you as an individual. They represent the universal human belief in separation from infinite source. When you stop taking conditions personally as being about you specifically, you stop giving them power over your identity and consciousness. If you are currently experiencing financial lack in your life, it is not because you personally are deficient, unworthy, or being punished. It is because human consciousness in general believes in the reality of limitation and separation from infinite supply. If you are experiencing disease or pain in your body, it is not because you specifically are broken or have failed spiritually. It is because human consciousness believes in vulnerability, deterioration, and separation from infinite life. When you see clearly and maintain awareness that these challenges are universal false beliefs appearing in your experience rather than personal truths about your spiritual identity, you stop fighting them on a personal level. This shift in perspective makes an enormous difference in your ability to stand firm in truth. This absolutely does not mean denying or suppressing your current experience of difficulty. It means recognizing clearly that what you are experiencing is the temporary appearing of universal false belief in your awareness, not the eternal truth of your divine nature. From this recognition of impersonalization, you can stand firm in I am the truth, rather than continuing to identify your real self with the temporary appearance of limitation. Joel also taught the powerful practice of what he called resting in the Word. This means finding one specific spiritual truth that resonates deeply with your soul and then living with it continuously throughout your day for an extended period. Not repeating it mechanically like a magic spell or mantra, but letting it gradually permeate every level of your consciousness until it becomes your automatic response to life. Perhaps you choose "the kingdom of God is within me," or "I and the Father are one," or simply "I am itself." Choose just one truth that speaks to your present need and level of understanding. Let this truth be your constant companion for many days or even weeks at a time. When fear suddenly arises in response to circumstances, immediately return to this truth. When doubt appears and tries to convince you nothing is working, remember this truth. When external circumstances look completely overwhelming, rest in this truth. You are not using these words as magic formulas that make things happen. You are letting this truth reprogram the deep subconscious patterns of consciousness that have been creating your experience for many years. This practice works gradually and cumulatively over time, not instantly. You will not necessarily feel dramatically different immediately after beginning this practice. But over a period of weeks and months, you will begin noticing that your automatic responses to life situations have shifted fundamentally. Where you once automatically reacted with fear and panic, you now find yourself naturally resting in peace. Where you once felt helpless and victimized, you now sense an inner stability and strength. This is consciousness transformation actively at work. The final technique Joel emphasized as essential was practicing gratitude from recognition of what already is, rather than from hope for what you want to attract. Do not be grateful because you hope that being thankful will magically attract good things into your life through some cosmic bargaining system. Be grateful because you recognize clearly that infinite good is already fully present in consciousness right now. Each evening before sleep, take just 3 focused minutes to acknowledge not what you hope will come in the future, but what already is true in present reality. I am grateful that infinite intelligence is present right now as my consciousness. I am grateful that divine supply is flowing constantly as my life. I am grateful that perfect wholeness is the eternal truth of my being. This is not trying to convince yourself of something that is not true. This is recognizing reality beneath appearances. These 4 practices work together synergistically to shift your entire consciousness from constantly seeking, struggling, and lacking to genuinely recognizing, resting, and receiving what already is. They are not techniques to get something from God that you do not already have. They are specific ways of systematically removing the obstacles in consciousness to recognizing what God already is being as you in this present moment. When practiced consistently over time, they produce genuine transformation of consciousness that then naturally manifests as transformed conditions in your experience. Let's address with complete honesty the real challenges you will inevitably face when attempting to live from this teaching in daily life. The biggest and most frustrating obstacle is the significant gap between intellectual understanding and actual lived experience from transformed consciousness. You can fully grasp "I am the way" as an inspiring concept in your mind while still automatically reacting to life circumstances from fear, lack, and limitation. This gap between knowing and being frustrates countless sincere seekers on the spiritual path. They wonder why understanding a profound truth intellectually does not immediately and automatically change their daily experience and responses. They read inspiring books, listen to transformative teachings, have moments of clarity and insight, yet find themselves still struggling with the same old patterns when facing real-life challenges and pressures. Joel Goldsmith was completely honest about this frustrating reality. He taught clearly that genuine consciousness transformation happens in layers over extended time, not instantly. Your surface conscious mind might accept and agree with a spiritual truth, while much deeper patterns of belief formed over many years continue operating automatically beneath awareness, controlling your responses and creating your experience. These deep subconscious patterns were formed gradually over years or even decades of conditioning, programming, and repetition. They do not simply dissolve and disappear because you read something inspiring or have one powerful moment of spiritual clarity or insight. The real challenge that tests your commitment is continuing the daily practice faithfully even when nothing seems to be changing in your circumstances. Another absolutely real challenge you must face is the constant, powerful pull of physical appearances and sense testimony. Your physical senses report disease in your body with unmistakable symptoms. Your bank account shows concrete lack with actual numbers. Your relationships reflect obvious conflict with real words and actions. Everything visible and tangible screams loudly that limitation is solid reality, while the truth of infinite presence remains completely invisible to physical perception. The human mind is designed to believe what it sees, hears, touches, and measures, while automatically doubting what it cannot perceive through the 5 physical senses. This is natural biological programming for physical survival. Joel taught that this is exactly where committed spiritual practice matters most and makes the crucial difference. Anyone can easily recognize divine presence when life circumstances are comfortable, health is good, money is flowing, and relationships are harmonious. The real spiritual work that produces genuine transformation happens when you maintain recognition of infinite presence, even when every single appearance aggressively contradicts it. This is not denial of what you see and experience. This is not pretending things are fine when they clearly are not. This is refusing to accept temporary appearance as ultimate reality about your spiritual nature and identity. This requires what Joel called taking no thought about conditions, not suppressing worried thoughts through willpower or forced positive thinking, but recognizing they are just thoughts arising in consciousness, not truth or reality. When fear arises about your financial situation, you do not fight against the fear or try to make it go away. You recognize, I am the presence of infinite supply, and let the fear be present without believing it or making decisions from it. Some sincere people struggle tremendously with this teaching because they are looking for and expecting dramatic supernatural experiences and manifestations. They want burning bushes, miraculous signs, overwhelming feelings of divine presence, instant healings, and undeniable proof. When their daily practice feels quiet, subtle, and completely ordinary without fireworks, they automatically assume it is not working and consider abandoning the practice. But Joel taught extensively that true spiritual realization is very often subtle and natural rather than dramatic and supernatural. You might not have powerful visions or overwhelming experiences of divine presence. Instead, you will gradually notice over weeks that you are significantly less anxious than you were before beginning practice. Problems that once completely consumed your attention and energy now seem somehow manageable and less threatening. You respond to challenging situations with an inner stability and centeredness you definitely did not possess just months ago. This is real consciousness transformation actively working, even though it lacks the dramatic fireworks and instant miracles you might have been expecting. The real danger here is constantly comparing your personal experience to others or to inspiring stories of instant dramatic healing you have heard. Your spiritual path is absolutely unique to your consciousness. Your particular consciousness has its own specific patterns, conditioning, and timing for transformation. Trust the gradual process even when it seems frustratingly slow compared to stories of instant miracles. Joel often said that one single hour of true recognition of divine presence accomplishes far more genuine transformation than years of desperate pleading prayer. The final significant challenge many people face is growing isolation and loneliness on the spiritual path. When you genuinely begin living from I am consciousness rather than victim consciousness, you rapidly discover that most people around you operate from completely different assumptions about reality. They believe firmly in luck, in victimhood, in getting God to help them, in manipulation and control. Your conversation becomes increasingly difficult because you are literally speaking from entirely different realities and assumptions. They discuss problems as ultimate reality. You recognize problems as temporary appearances in consciousness. They seek to change conditions. You work to transform consciousness. This fundamental difference makes ordinary conversation feel strange and disconnected. Joel strongly encouraged finding even one other person who genuinely understands this teaching. Join a study group focused on these principles, even if it must be online rather than in person. Read Joel's books repeatedly until the principles penetrate deep consciousness. Listen to recordings of his actual classes regularly. You absolutely need consistent reminders and reinforcement because the world's voice is extremely loud and constant, continuously pulling you back to conventional victim consciousness and material focus. If these challenge-breaking techniques speak to your heart, like to support this content, subscribe for advanced spiritual practices, and comment, which obstacle are you ready to transform now? Once you have faithfully practiced these foundational principles for several months with consistency, you will inevitably face advanced situations that test your understanding at much deeper levels than before. A man named Robert had been sincerely practicing Joel Goldsmith's teachings for approximately 1 full year. His chronic health issues had improved dramatically. His previously unstable finances had become steady and reliable. His difficult relationships had deepened and harmonized significantly. Then, without warning, his wife received a diagnosis of serious illness from her doctor after routine testing. Everything in Robert wanted immediately to panic, to desperately beg God to heal her, to frantically try every possible treatment available. But Joel had taught him clearly that the moment of real crisis is exactly when you must stand firmest in spiritual truth, not abandon it for human solutions alone, not becoming cold, unfeeling, or detached from her suffering, but maintaining crystal clear consciousness regardless of appearances. Robert spent multiple hours daily recognizing the Christ presence as the absolute truth of his wife's being beneath all symptoms. He did not deny her uncomfortable symptoms or tell her they were not real. He fully supported appropriate medical treatment and care. But internally, in his own consciousness where the real work happens, he absolutely refused to accept disease as ultimate reality about her spiritual identity. He rested consistently in this recognition. I am the life eternal expressing as her being right now. This practice was not easy or comfortable. Some days he struggled significantly with fear and doubt, but he returned again and again to this recognition. After 4 challenging months, her condition completely reversed. Medical doctors were genuinely surprised and could not fully explain it, but Robert understood perfectly what had happened. An entrepreneur named David successfully applied these consciousness principles to significant business expansion after stabilizing his existing operation. He had effectively used consciousness work to move his business from struggle to stability over approximately 18 months. Now he felt guided to expand into completely new markets that would require substantial investment and risk. But predictably, all his old fears arose with intensity. What if this expansion fails completely? What if he loses everything he has built? What if his family suffers from his ambitious decision? What if he is making a terrible mistake? Joel's teaching told him clearly and firmly, never make important decisions from fear or from desire. Make them only from the recognition of divine guidance present as your own consciousness, which knows the right path. David spent 3 full weeks not planning, strategizing, or analyzing options, but simply resting daily in the deep awareness that infinite intelligence was present as his mind right now. From that place of inner clarity and peace, he finally saw the right path forward with certainty, not through cleverly analyzing pros and cons or calculating probabilities, but through an inner knowing that arose naturally from resting in presence. He moved forward with confidence. Significant challenges appeared during implementation, as they always do in any substantial undertaking. But each time obstacles arose, he returned immediately to this recognition. I am the wisdom expressing here now as right action. His expansion succeeded well beyond his initial projections, not through clever human strategy or manipulation, but through consciousness alignment with infinite intelligence. A passionate teacher named Lisa faced the challenging question of applying this spiritual understanding to obvious social injustice and systemic oppression. She directly witnessed profound inequality, human suffering, and oppressive systems harming vulnerable people daily. How could she possibly recognize divine presence as ultimate reality when such obvious evil existed everywhere? Wasn't this privileged spiritual teaching just convenient bypassing of real urgent problems requiring concrete action? Joel Goldsmith addressed this legitimate concern directly and clearly. Recognizing divine presence as ultimate reality does not mean ignoring injustice, oppression, or evil in the world. It means refusing to empower evil by believing it is ultimate reality or permanent truth. From the consciousness that knows clearly, I am the only presence and power, you take inspired, effective action in the world. Not action born from rage, despair, or victimhood, but action flowing from recognition of truth. Lisa continued her important justice work with renewed energy, but now from fundamentally transformed consciousness rather than from anger and burnout. She stopped seeing oppressors as evil beings beyond redemption and began recognizing them as humans, trapped in false belief and separation consciousness. She worked passionately for systemic change while maintaining inner peace and spiritual stability, regardless of outcomes. Her actual effectiveness in creating change increased significantly because she was not constantly burning out from anger and despair. She was serving from recognition of the divine potential present in every person, including those currently expressing through harmful systems. This consciousness of wholeness in all beings made her more effective, not less engaged with real problems. The most advanced application of this teaching is maintaining transformed consciousness, even in the face of death itself, the ultimate human fear. When Joel Goldsmith faced his own terminal illness in his final months, he faithfully practiced exactly what he had taught thousands of others for 40 years. He did not deny his body's deteriorating condition or pretend symptoms were not occurring. He did not refuse appropriate medical care and comfort measures. But internally, he rested continuously in the recognition that I am is eternal, infinite, and completely untouched by the dissolution of temporary physical form. This teaching is not about conquering death or living forever in a physical body, which is neither possible nor desirable. It is about recognizing that your true identity transcends physical existence entirely. The body appears in consciousness and eventually disappears, but the I am that you truly are is eternal presence itself. Joel passed peacefully and fully conscious, resting in this truth without fear or resistance. For those currently facing mortality in themselves or in loved ones, this teaching offers genuine peace that transcends circumstances, not false hope of physical immortality or denial of natural processes, but deep recognition of eternal spiritual identity beyond all physical manifestation. The body is temporary vehicle and expression in the material world. The consciousness that declares I am and knows itself as existing is infinite presence itself, untouched by birth or death of forms. This recognition transforms the fear of death into peaceful acceptance of eternal life, expressing through temporary forms. After many months or even years of consistent faithful practice of these principles, something absolutely fundamental shifts in your entire experience of life and self. You no longer wake up each morning trying desperately to just get through another difficult day. You wake naturally aware that infinite presence is living itself as this new day unfolding now. You no longer face challenging situations wondering anxiously how you will possibly manage them with your limited resources. You face challenges knowing with certainty that divine intelligence is present right now as your consciousness, providing everything needed for right action. This is not arrogance, inflation, or spiritual delusion. It is simple clarity about what is true. You have personally witnessed too many times that when you rest in I am recognition, perfect solutions appear, unexpected strength emerges, and deep peace remains regardless of external circumstances. You have watched your own consciousness gradually transform over time from constant anxious seeking to confident resting in present awareness. The concrete evidence of your own lived experience confirms repeatedly the truth of what Jesus was teaching through I am the way. People around you begin noticing something distinctly different about you, though most cannot name exactly what has changed. They sense a stability and centeredness in you that circumstances do not shake or disturb. Some people are naturally attracted to this quality of peaceful presence. Others feel threatened by it because it challenges their victim consciousness. Your job is never to convince anyone of this truth or prove it to skeptics. Your only job is to continue recognizing truth steadily regardless of others' reactions or beliefs. The transformation gradually extends far beyond your personal benefit and comfort. When you genuinely live from I am consciousness consistently, you naturally become a healing presence wherever you happen to be. Not because you try to heal people or fix their problems, but because the consciousness of wholeness that you recognize and rest in radiates naturally and affects the atmosphere. People in your presence often feel unexplainably peaceful, hopeful, or clarified without understanding why. Joel Goldsmith called this profound phenomenon the ministry of presence. You are not preaching at people, teaching them principles or trying to fix their problems. You are simply so established in recognition of divine presence that it naturally affects everyone and everything in your vicinity. A cashier has a noticeably better day after briefly interacting with you, though neither of you discusses anything spiritual. A worried friend feels mysteriously calmer and more hopeful just sitting in your company for an hour. This is not your personal power or special ability. It is the Christ consciousness naturally expressing through you and touching others. This is exactly why Jesus said, "I am the way," rather than "I, Jesus, am the way." He was not claiming personal specialness or superiority over other humans. He was revealing that living from divine consciousness recognition transforms not only your personal experience, but creates genuine healing effects in the world around you, wherever you go. This is your destiny and purpose too. As you faithfully practice this understanding daily, you will discover through experience that problems, challenges, and difficulties still arise regularly in your life, but your fundamental relationship to them transforms completely and permanently. Instead of seeing problems as terrible threats requiring desperate, frantic effort to fix or escape, you begin seeing them as valuable opportunities to practice recognition of truth at deeper levels. Each challenge becomes a clear invitation to return to "I am" consciousness, rather than falling into "I am this terrible circumstance" identification. Financial pressure appears in your experience. Old unconscious, you would immediately panic and spiral into fear and desperate schemes. Present conscious, you recognize as clearly, "I am the infinite source expressing here now," and takes appropriate action from peace. Uncomfortable health symptoms arise in your body. Old unconscious, you would spiral rapidly into fear, catastrophic thinking, and desperate seeking. Present conscious, you rests firmly in "I am the wholeness of being," while taking appropriate practical care. Relationship conflict emerges with someone close to you. Old unconscious, you would defend, attack, blame, and create more separation. Present conscious, you maintains steady awareness of divine presence in all beings involved. This absolutely does not mean problems magically vanish the instant you recognize truth. It means you face them from fundamentally transformed consciousness rather than from fear and limitation. And from transformed consciousness, you naturally receive inner guidance, unexpected strength, and creative solutions that were simply not available from anxious struggling and desperate manipulation. Life still moves with its natural rhythms and changes, but you are no longer helplessly tossed by its waves. You are anchored firmly in eternal presence regardless of changing conditions. Understanding why Jesus said, "I am the way," is not merely intellectual achievement or accumulation of spiritual knowledge. It represents the profound difference between struggling through life desperately hoping God will eventually help you, and recognizing that the infinite presence of God is already being you right now. This recognition transforms absolutely everything about your experience, your consciousness, and your life. Not overnight through instant magic, but certainly and steadily through consciousness shift. Your spiritual work now is consistent daily practice regardless of appearances. Return faithfully each day to recognition of "I am" as your true identity beyond personality. Not the small I of personality, ego, body, or personal history. The "I am" of infinite presence expressing itself as this unique point of awareness and consciousness. As you practice faithfully over time, your entire experience naturally reorganizes itself around that recognition. Health improves steadily as consciousness of wholeness replaces belief in vulnerability. Supply flows naturally as recognition of infinite source replaces belief in limitation. Relationships harmonize beautifully as awareness of divine presence in all replaces judgment and separation. Inner peace becomes your natural state regardless of external circumstances changing. This is what Joel Goldsmith dedicated his entire life to teaching others because he witnessed it work consistently again and again. This is the central transformative message of Jesus that was hidden in plain sight for 2,000 years, while humanity worshipped the messenger and ignored the message. You do not need to become spiritual or achieve some special state. You need only to recognize the spiritual truth that you already are beneath all appearances. "I am the way" means recognizing divine consciousness as your true identity is the path to all genuine transformation in every area of life. If your spiritual understanding expanded through these Joel Goldsmith secrets, like this video, Subscribe for more transformative teachings, and comment, "I am transformed," to confirm your new path.